And so at the closing table, I'm doing the math. So I know no mortgage payment, no credit cards. It came up to just shy of 1,200 a month. So I know the number. I say, hey, Carmen, tell me how this is going to help you. She kisses me on the cheek. It's the only time I've ever been kissed at closing, Mike. I had to go home and tell my wife I got kissed at closing today by an 84-year-old lady. But she kisses me on the cheek and she says, you know what? Now I don't have to worry about money. I can sleep at night. So I literally am helping a lady right now. She has a $1.1 million home here in Colorado Springs. And in our first phone call, she says, I've overbuilt and I'm house rich and cash poor. My house is free and clear. This $1.1 million is sitting there doing nothing. I want to tap into it. And we just got the appraisal this morning, came in at 1.1. And so now she's going to unlock some of that equity. I think it's about 43% based on her age. She's 75. And so she's going to use some of it to pay off some credit cards and her car. She's going to free up the mortgage payment, those payments. She's going to be about 2,500 a month to the good cash flow wise. But then the balance is going to stay in a line of credit. The genesis of this actually was I took a few of them into the radio studio because we were cutting some radio spots. And I left in tears. I was so impacted. I mean, I knew it had helped them, but I just left in tears because I thought, this is so much better than I thought.
Yeah.
And then I had the idea, well, maybe I should write a book because people, when you bring up the topic of reverse mortgage, people are like, stay away. I don't want to hear about that.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Kevin Guttman, thank you so much for being our guest second time around on the Mike Litton Experience. Super excited to have you here. Super excited for our time together. Super excited to talk about your book, A Reverse Mortgage Saved My Life. Love this. Absolutely love this. So like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story and our passion is to help them tell it. We have your life story now on our program. And now we're going to talk about this book that you just published about reverse mortgages. And I learned a ton. I've been in the mortgage business for 33 years, and I'm still astounded at how much I learned. So I really feel like people need to get their hands on this, and they need to read it, and then they need to get in touch with you to get all of their specific questions answered. So thanks again for sending the book. It's been amazing. So can you talk for just a second about what the story is behind the book? Like, what was it that, because there are people listening to this and we're in 64 countries worldwide, like I shared with you. So there are people that are listening to this that are thinking about writing a book and they just haven't done it. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, well, it's great to be back. Thanks, Mike. Reverse mortgages are very maligned and misunderstood and therefore underutilized. So the goal behind the book was just to share stories from my clients of how a reverse mortgage has changed their life. So I interviewed them basically, and of course changed their names to protect their privacy, but just really told their story of how a reverse mortgage has helped them to have more money to live and to sleep better at night and not feel the pressure of all the making the mortgage payment every month or not having enough money. So really what I did is I just went through the list of my clients and they all have a story, as you know. And I just said, hey, would you be willing to share your story with people to help them understand how a reverse mortgage may help them? And so about 30 people said yes.
Cool.
And I thought that was enough. I mean, people don't want to read a 400-page book. So yeah. And I just went through and took about a year and recorded their stories. And it's been really fun because the genesis of this actually was I took a few of them into the radio studio because we were cutting some radio spots. And I left in tears. I was so impacted. I mean, I knew it had helped them, but I just left in tears because I thought, this is so much better than I thought.
Yeah.
And then I had the idea, well, maybe I should write a book, because people, when you bring up the topic of reverse mortgage, people are like, stay away. I don't want to hear about that. And then you have people like Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey bad mouthing them, who, by the way, aren't licensed to sell them, aren't really educated to talk about them honestly, and yet they say all these things that are inaccurate and not true, and people rely on that.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, my little pebble in the water is going to be write this book and share stories and just let people decide for themselves if it's a good thing or not.
Well, everybody's life is different, right? Everybody's situation is individual, that kind of thing, right? Unique, right? And so it's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to use a reverse mortgage. But I'll tell you, there are some things in that book that got me thinking about different situations over the last 33 years that I've been in this business, that, you know what, a reverse mortgage might have worked better here. Or I had a client that bought a couple, some clients have purchased listings of mine and they've used a reverse mortgage to do it. And, you know, some of them have looked at me and just said, you know, you need to look into this. You need to research this more, because this really is a thing. This is really something that if we hadn't had reverse mortgages or a reverse mortgage available to us, we wouldn't have been able to buy this house. And this is our dream house. This is what we've worked for 50 years. I mean, when people tell you things like that, it sort of gets your attention, right? And so it brought a lot of that back, you know, where I was looking at it going, wow, okay, this actually does make sense in terms of different people's, how they go about applying it, right? So, you know, what people,
and that's what I say too, is at least they should learn about it.
Yeah.
Whether they do it or not, learn about it, understand it, make your own decision if it's going to help you or not. It may not.
Yeah.
But so we always ask a lot of questions up front. And Mike, you've been in the business a long time, so you know how it goes.
Sure.
We want to understand what the goal of the borrower is, what
Absolutely.
their long-term and short-term goals are. And so, for example, if somebody's not going to live in the house 18 months or 2 years, it's probably not a good option for them. If they really haven't managed their money that well, and we give them a chunk of money available to them, we're probably putting them in a worse position. So it's kind of like winning the lottery, right? You've heard about those people, they win the lottery and 2 years later, they're worse off than they were. So we really try to be careful about making sure it's the right fit for the right person, the right situation.
And that it fits with their goals, right? And their aspirations and all that kind of thing. Because, you know, there's so much more to people's lives, especially I'm older, right? Especially as, you know, I've got grandkids coming, right? God willing, right? I have marriages coming of my children and, you know, all this kind of thing. So, I mean, again, you know, but it's one of those things where my life is developing on a regular basis. I mean, you and I were just talking right before we hit record about how rapid everything's changing and how rapid everything's evolving, so to speak, with this podcast and all the things that we're working on and projects we're in. So it's every day, it seems like it's something else. Every day, it seems like we, you know, add to it, because I'm just really terrible at saying no. Right. But let's talk about the book for just a second. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is I'd like to go through each section. So the first section in the book, after the introduction, is home equity conversion mortgage for purchase. Talk about that for a second, because that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And quite honestly, Kevin, I think what you're hearing from Susie Orman and from Dave Ramsey and other people is that you fear most what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Once you know it, it just doesn't seem that daunting. So talk about that for a minute.
So I had a funny conversation one time with a real estate agent. We were talking about reverse mortgages, and I said, you know, this is a way that you can actually help more of your clients, because maybe the house they live in doesn't suit them anymore. They've lived there for a long time. Maybe the neighborhood's changed, or maybe they have some deferred maintenance, or maybe they don't feel safe there living there anymore. Maybe it's too much to maintain. Maybe it's too big. Oftentimes in Colorado, where I live, we have, you know, multi-stair homes,
Mhm.
and maybe somebody can't do the stairs anymore.
Yeah.
So I say, look, you go to these clients and say, what if you could increase your purchasing power by 35 to 45% when you buy your next home, buy a house that better suits you in the stage of life with no deferred maintenance, updated amenities in the part of town you want to live in. You make one large down payment and then not have a monthly mortgage payment. They could get the listing and the sale. It's a great option for not just the client, but the realtor. So really that's it in a nutshell, Mike. It allows the homeowner to increase their buying power by 35 to 45%, depending upon their age, when they buy a new home. We have a lot of people here in Colorado that say, I can't afford to move. California is probably similar. It's real estate so expensive. But if they knew they could increase their buying power, that might be a different story. So that's what that section's about. It's just about stories of people who have chosen to buy a home and finance it with a reverse mortgage. So the funny story is I'm talking to this real estate agent and he's like, so they buy the house, then they get the reverse mortgage. I'm like, no, they buy the house and finance it with a reverse mortgage. And we go through several iterations of this. I'm like, it's like a VA loan or a conventional loan. The financing is the reverse mortgage.
Mhm.
And it finally clicked. He's like, okay, I see that you can actually finance a new house you're buying with a reverse mortgage. I'm like, yes.
And how much do you have to put down?
It depends upon the age of the person. I would say 55 to 65% down would be a good estimate. I have a
So
quick story about it if you want to hear.
sure, go ahead. Yeah, I love it.
I had a client move back to Colorado Springs, which is where I live, from Arkansas because the husband wasn't in the best of health. In fact, when I met him, we were at 6,500 elevation. He had to have oxygen mask or oxygen tube in his nose.
Mhm.
And he told me, he goes, look, I'm not in the best of health. My wife's going to outlive me. I want to make sure she's going to be okay when I'm gone.
Mhm.
I said, okay, what does that look like? He goes, well, we need to buy the right house. So they bought a condo where there's no maintenance for her. And, we want to make one down payment, not have a monthly payment, just pay the property taxes, insurance, HOA, and maintain it. I said, if you do those things, those are the requirements of a
Mhm.
reverse mortgage: primary home, maintain it, pay the property charges on time. You can stay to age 150. So we helped him close right before Christmas. A few months later, I get a call from Sharon, and she says, hey, Kevin, I don't know if you remember me. I'm like, of course I remember you. We just closed a few months ago. And she said, but I want to let you know, my husband passed away, and you had told us that if this remained our primary home, we maintained it, paid the property taxes, insurance, HOA on time, I could stay to age 150. Is that right? I said, that's true. Sigh of relief. She goes, good. That's the only way I can afford to stay in my home because there's no mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So, when we say it's changing lives, it truly is. I mean, think about that widow. Where's she going to go? But her husband made sure she was going to be taken care of and nothing to worry about after he was no longer here.
That's wild. We had a gentleman years ago when we owned our Keller Williams office. We had a gentleman walk in and he was stage 4 cancer and knew he only had a month or so left. He walked in and he said, I want to buy a warehouse and I want to buy a house and I'm paying cash. And we sort of, it's not every day that somebody walks in and says that, right? And his wife's with him. And so we asked him, we said, we totally get the house thing because you want somewhere for her to live and all that kind of thing. But what about the warehouse? And he said, I've spent the last 4 decades working for every administration in the last 4 decades. So like 10 different presidents kind of thing, right? Or I think it was 6. He'd worked for 6 different presidents and he was a cultural attaché and he would go all around the world and he collected things all around the world. So as he would travel, he would send things home and bring things back with him. Well, apparently he had an entire warehouse full of that stuff, right? And they had it in these self-storage units that were spread all over the place. And he was paying all this money right? And so he just said, look, I want her to, this is her inheritance. I want her to have these items so she can sell them whenever she wants or do whatever she wants with them. But I want to put them in one place so that it's simple. So he ends up buying that, right? and they would have been perfect for a reverse mortgage. He paid cash for everything, but they would have been perfect for a reverse mortgage for that house for her. When I was reading your book, it made me think of them, right? Because he was literally doing the same thing. He was making plans so that she would be taken care of. And, he knew he was going to pass, and he did not long after that. So, it's a great tool. It's a great thing that people can bring and use that most people don't understand is even available to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So unlocking your home's equity with a reverse mortgage. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So there's three ways people use them. You first one you just hit on, finance a home. The second one is access equity. So I literally am helping a lady right now. She has a $1.1 million home here in Colorado Springs. And in our first phone call, she says, I've overbuilt and I'm house rich and cash poor. My house is free and clear. This $1.1 million is sitting there doing nothing. I want to tap into it. And we just got the appraisal this morning, came in at 1.1. And so now she's going to unlock some of that equity. I think it's about 43% based on her age. She's 75. And so she's going to use some of it to pay off some credit cards and her car. She's going to free up the mortgage payment, those payments. She's going to be about $2,500 a month to the good cash flow wise. Mm-hmm. But then the balance is going to stay in a line of credit. And she can convert that line of credit to lump sum or monthly payments. But in the meantime, it's going to grow by compound interest month over month over month, tax free. And then when she draws out the money, it's also not taxable. So rather than have all this equity sit there and do nothing, she can tap into about 450,000 of it. So just pretty close of 43% of 1.1 and not have a payment. And there's still equity at the end for her kids. She has 2 kids. And because she's not going to use it all, she's just using some of it to pay off the debt. So really, I mean, the story I like the best about this one is Grandma Pat. Grandma Pat lives in Grand Junction, Colorado. And she called me. A lot of my business is by referral and past clients. So she calls me up and she says, I want to get a reverse mortgage. And we go through all the explaining of it and why she's looking to do it. And she has 3 grandchildren, 3 grand boys. And she said, I was a single mom. I raised my daughter. Now my daughter's a single mom and has these 3 boys. Mm-hmm. And I want to take these boys on vacation, a nice vacation every summer. And this year we're going to St. Kitts, Nevis and St. Kitts.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. And she's like, these boys are always going to remember this. They think I'm the coolest grandma ever because I take them on these nice vacations. Mm-hmm. And this is why she's doing it, because she wants to take some of her money and use it now to create experiences and memories for her family so that when she's no longer here, they've got these great memories and experiences of Grandma Pat. And I've had other people too. By the way, you can use a client can use the money however they wish. The only restriction is they can't buy an annuity with proceeds from a reverse mortgage. But I've had people buy second homes. I've had people buy businesses. I've had people take money out to help a down payment for a child or grandchild. In fact, the other day I was talking to a guy who owns this house free and clear, $800,000 house, wants to take out $170,000 to help his granddaughter who's going through a divorce, needs to get on her feet, needs to pay some money to the ex-husband, So, I mean, you said it a minute ago, it's unique. It's like a fingerprint. Mm-hmm. Somebody can use it however they want. And I always say it this way, Mike, nobody comes to me to get a reverse mortgage. They come to get what a reverse mortgage can do for them. Yeah. Right. There's something they want to do with that money while they're still alive.
Well, they come to you for a solution. And this just happens to be a tool that's part of that solution. Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com. And it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today, right? So I was just on a podcast as a guest the other day, and it actually the excerpt just went out, I don't know, a few days ago. And what we talked about specifically was that there are people in California that have purchased their home for $178,000. Okay. And now the house is worth 1.2 million. So and I mean, their basis is less than 178,000, and they're staring down the barrel of $1 million plus in capital gains.
Yeah.
Do you have a situation or an example where somebody had too much in the way of capital gains? Like if they sold their house, they would have to pay capital gains tax on capital gains tax on $700,000, right? Or pardon me, on $500,000, because they have a $500,000 exemption. Can you talk about that for a second, like an example of something where somebody's used it to help with that?
I haven't had somebody use it with this specific way, but what I can tell you is there is a strategy. If we can go back to the first option,
Sure,
financing a home with a reverse mortgage. I've had several people do this, and this is a little known advanced tactic, if you will. So this guy and I were talking, he and his wife, they had a reverse mortgage on a property here in Colorado Springs. By the way, I'm licensed in 20 states, but this is the one that just popped into my mind.
right.
And they said, we want to move and buy another home with a reverse mortgage, and we want to overfund it, because we had talked about this the first time they got their reverse mortgage. And so now they're taking 100,000 extra of what they're getting from the sale of their home, and they're putting it onto the new home. Why would they do that? Because they're actually doing a hybrid. They're buying a home with a reverse mortgage. They're overfunding it so they have the line of credit,
Right.
because they didn't have long-term care insurance. And by the way, Mike, 12% of Americans have it. 2/3 of Americans are going to need some form of long-term care insurance.
Right.
And that could mean, mostly it means having somebody come into the house to care for you,
Right.
to bathe, dress, do chores, make food, run errands, maybe minor medical things, make sure you take your meds, that kind of thing.
Right.
So now they're saying we're going to self-fund our long-term care insurance. So now they were 72. So they said we've got this $100,000 line of credit. 10 years, it's going to double because the interest rate's about 7%. Now we're going to have 200,000 in our 80s. If we need any help, we're just going to draw on that money to pay somebody to come in and help us. So that's not exactly a strategy to deal with taxes. However, here comes the tax piece. Because no payment is required with a reverse mortgage, there's no interest deducted. So I told them, I said, hey guys, what you may consider, they still had a balance, even though they paid 100,000 extra, they still had about a $70,000 balance. I said, what you may consider is when you get extra money in, tax refund, they actually gamble up at casinos in the mountains up here. So I said, when you get these winnings, maybe pay it onto your mortgage, because then you're creating a tax deduction with interest.
Right.
So there's all kinds of strategies that, like you said, people aren't aware of, that if they only knew, they could so improve their financial position. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah. And that's what I want people to understand, right? If you're in a position, if you're in a place, and it's a nice place to be, right? I mean, pick your heart, right? But if you're in a place where you just have a lot of equity and you're staring down the barrel of potentially a large capital gains tax, try to figure out a way, try to figure out some sort of a solution to where it works out best for you and for your family and for your estate. That's the only thing, right? And there are ways to use different types of financing vehicles and different types of vehicles in the tax code that allow you to do that and look at your capital gains situation in a strategic way. So I just feel like it's something that, people need to be getting in touch with you, and they need to be sharing with you what their challenge is and then what solution you have for them. And you and I both know you have a ton of them. So let's talk about eliminating your monthly mortgage payment.
So this is the primary way that people use reverse mortgages. About 2/3 of people use it this way. Think about it, Mike. If somebody has, a mortgage payment is most people's biggest expense in their budget each month.
Right.
So if we take that off the table, the principal and interest payment, they still have to pay their taxes and insurance. But we take that off the table. I'll give you a quick story. The very first one I did, 2015, was referred by a client, referred me her 84-year-old mother, who was about 5 foot nothing, just full of fire, just fun gal. And I asked her, I said, "Hey, Carmen, why do you want to do this?" And she said, "Well, my budget's tight." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I can get that. Fixed income." She lived in a duplex. The rent paid the mortgage, but then she had Social Security to live on, and it was tight. So I said, "Well, tell me more about that." She goes, "Well, to be honest, I'm using credit cards to buy groceries." Can you imagine? 84 years old, has to have credit cards to eat, to have food. And so at the closing table, I'm doing the math. So I know no mortgage payment, no credit cards. It came up to just shy of 1,200 a month. So I know the number. I say, "Hey, Carmen, tell me how this is going to help you." She kisses me on the cheek. It's the only time I've ever been kissed at closing, Mike. I had to go home and tell my wife I got kissed at closing today by an 84-year-old lady. But she kisses me on the cheek and she says, "You know what? Now I don't have to worry about money. I can sleep at night."
Yeah.
And just that, just eliminating some of her bills and her monthly mortgage payment, freeing up that cash flow. And maybe 1,200 doesn't seem like a lot, but for her, it made
It was a
all the
lot.
difference in the world. And
Yeah.
of course, I keep in touch with people. She lived there another 10 years before she moved out, needed to go live with a relative because she needed more help to get by day to day. But think about that. 10 years living in her home independently, no mortgage payment, still equity at the end. It was a game changer. So eliminate payment. Do you take that expense off somebody's budget? It makes a big difference.
Huge, especially when you're on a fixed income, right? And here's the thing. What price can you put on peace of mind? What price can you put on the ability to sleep at night?
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, it's a deal. Okay. So the final section in your book talks about refinancing an existing mortgage. Talk about that for a second using reverse mortgages.
So, about 1.2 million people have taken out a reverse mortgage since 1988 when the government started regulating them. And AARP did a study and found that 93% of them were satisfied or very satisfied. In other words, it was doing what it was supposed to do, help them to age in place, maintain their independence, entertain the lifestyle they've worked for and dreamed of, retain ownership on title, gain access to their equity, refrain from having a monthly mortgage payment. It was doing all of that. And so we have all these people that have a reverse mortgage, but maybe they've had it for a long time and property values have gone up. So now if they refinance their existing reverse mortgage, they could get access to more equity. In other words, more money available to them to live on if they need it. And the way it works, Mike, is you only pay interest on the amount you borrow. So it's kind of like a credit card. Let's say you have a $10,000 limit on your card, but you only borrow $3,000. You're only paying interest on the $3,000. You have access to 10, but you're only paying interest on the amount you draw, which is $3,000. Same thing with a reverse mortgage. You have access to 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. You're only paying interest on the amount that you draw. Right. Of course, what happens at the end? People always want to know that, and that's a great question. When the last person moves out permanently, they move somewhere else, they go on to heaven, they don't live in the house anymore, the loan becomes due. And the heirs or the estate or the borrowers have up to 6 months to sell or refinance the property. By the way, I know you know this, but these are non-recourse loans. What does that mean? Well, with mortgages, traditional mortgages, we're all personally liable for the note. If we don't make the payment, we get a phone call. What happened? Where's the money? Pay up, right? With a reverse mortgage, that can never happen. It's a non-recourse loan. The only recourse the lender has is against the sale or refinance of the home. So no debt can ever be passed on to the borrower, to the estate, to the heirs. The two main differences between a traditional mortgage and a reverse mortgage is reverse mortgage has no monthly payment required, principal and interest payment required, and two, they're not responsible to pay it back.
Yeah. Okay. So you write the book, you finish the book. Number one, how did it feel to start? How did it feel to finish?
It always feels like, this is my fourth book. It always feels like you're climbing Mount Everest, like I'm never going to finish it. I don't have time to do it. It's too hard. will anybody want to read it? Blah, 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 all these things that go through your head. And I just stayed focused. I just said, you know what? I've got a timeline. I have people that are willing to be interviewed. I'm going to get it done. I found somebody to help me paginate the book, which is make the formatting, basically is what it means.
Right.
I found somebody to do the cover. I found an editor to help me clean it up grammatically and make it more readable. And it all just came together. I just plowed away a little bit not every day, but every week. I tried to do a little bit every week just to move the ball forward. And then once it comes to fruition, it's a real source of pride, because I think it's less than 5 people in the country have written a book, 5% of people. So it's pretty cool. And then of course the challenge is to get the word out, to let people know about it. I give them away. I don't make any money off it. I mean, if anybody buys one on Amazon, all that money goes to charity. I don't keep any of the money. And I didn't write it for that. I didn't write it to make money. I wrote it to educate people and to help them see that these are not bad. People think they're bad, and they're not. And a book kind of opens up their mind because they can read a story and people relate to stories. So yeah, it was a great feeling to get it done, and a great sense of accomplishment, and very grateful that my clients were willing to share their stories, because I did change their names, but still it's some private information they're sharing with people. That if somebody were to know them and read their book, they'd say, oh, that sounds like you. And that's what happened one time. Client came back and told me, they said, somebody found me in your book. I'm like, oh, that's weird. But they have plausible deniability because their name wasn't in it. So
right. So last question. Second last question. Where can people go to get a copy of this book? Because they need to get one.
Yeah. They can find all my books at reversemortgagebook.info.
Okay.
Or just Amazon. They can go and type in my name.
It's Guttman. Guttman.
So 2 of them are storybooks. The Swiss Army Knife for Retirement Cash Flow is my first book. And then this book, Of Reverse Mortgage Changed My Life. Those are storybooks. The middle 2, I interviewed professionals that work with seniors, CPAs, financial planners, insurance agents, Medicare agents, elder law attorneys, etc. And I said, what's the best advice you could give to a senior? I interviewed professionals in Colorado Springs and in Denver, and that's what that book is. It's just interviews of those specialists that help seniors.
Awesome. Your single greatest favorite, and I know this is a tough question, but your single favorite story of all the 30 interviews?
Well, that's tough. Grandma Pat would be up there. These people that bought the house and overfinanced it, overfunded it. That's a great one. I love the Bill and Sharon story. I gotta say, I love Carmen's story. I mean, I'm tearing up even thinking about it. It just was so impactful. Yeah, those are the ones that stick out. I have one more. This is also a very good one. Financial planner sent me a couple, and I forget the name I gave them in the book, but I'm thinking of their name. I don't want to use it to protect their privacy, but they actually were able to combine eliminating payment, accessing equity. It was over a $2,000 a month swing in their budget. And the thing that mattered here was he couldn't work anymore. He'd gotten disabled. He could not work anymore. And so they really were up against it because they're making their mortgage payment. They don't have his income coming in. What are they going to do? And most people qualify with just their Social Security income, which was this case. And then we freed up a little over $2,000 a month by no mortgage payment, and then money that came to them from equity each month. And I've often thought about them because, I don't want to say they were desperate, but they didn't really have a lot of options. And this was a great solution for them. So I think about them as well.
So your best piece of advice for somebody that's listening to this interview?
Take the time to learn about how a reverse mortgage can help you, and block out the noise from the internet, from these pundits and experts who don't really know, honestly. And then the other thing is work with somebody who does these on a regular basis. It's very different than a traditional loan, as you know, Mike. It's a whole different way to think, and you really want to work with somebody that knows what they're doing, has closed a lot of them, is going to guide you through the right process. And you and I, Mike, have an advantage, I think, because we work for a broker. We can shop multiple lenders. We're not locked into one option. So that would be another thing, is work with a broker that can save you some time and shop, get you the best deal.
So the name of the book is A Reverse Mortgage Saved My Life. Go get it today. Give us the address to the website one more time.
reversemortgagebook.info, or you can go on Amazon too.
Awesome. Kevin Guttman, thank you so much for coming back to the Mike Litton Experience. This has been fun, buddy.
Oh, I've loved it, Mike. It's great to be with you again. Great to see you. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
It's awesome with how well your podcast is doing. I'm just blown away. And
well, you were a part of it. You were a part of it, right? I mean, this is episode 352, and you were one of the the original 351. So you were a part of it, bud, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com, and the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.